and I think they must have quite liked me because I literally got the call. Would I be in the Vampire Lovers? Not knowing, I have to add, Caroline, I certainly didn't know what a lesbian was or ladies kissing each other or anything like that. So it was quite a baptism of fire.
Well, I guess that's one way to get people's attention. Hammer Studios had done plenty of vampire movies before, but by 1970 it was time to shake things up. To get people in theaters, their vampire flicks had to be sexier and more provocative than they ever had been. So let's check out one of the cornerstones of sexy vampire cinema with The Vampire Lovers. So if you remember my video on Curse of Frankenstein, Britain's Hammer Studios helped to reinvigorate the gothic horror genre in the 1950s by pushing the envelope of gore and sex. Usually this just meant a little bit of blood and some cleavage, but by 1950 standards that was enough to be considered shocking. However, by the early 70s, things had changed. Censorship laws had loosened to the point where movies could now show a much greater level of sex and violence than before, and horror movies were beginning to take advantage of this new freedom. It was no longer enough to simply show spooky castles and graveyards. If Hammer wanted to compete, they needed to amp up the gore, nudity, and sleaze. So in 1970, we got The Vampire Lovers, the first in what's known as the Karnstein trilogy, which also included Lust for a Vampire and Twins of Evil, and also Hammer's entry into the lesbian vampire subgenre, which is more prolific than you might think. You had Daughters of Darkness, Vampiros Lesbos, Vampires with a Y, The Velvet Vampire, Fascination, and that's just the 70s. I could keep going. Despite the salacious subject matter, this also has some literary credibility since it's based on the story Carmilla, which actually predates Dracula by 25 years and is considered one of the earliest examples of the lesbian vampire subgenre. Now this isn't the first lesbian vampire movie, but it is one of the best known, and its success helped inspire similar movies in the 70s, so let's see if it lives up to its reputation. Oh, well that's odd. This is the first suicide note I've ever seen that comes with its own business card. Alright, actually this is a note written by vampire hunter Baron von Hartog, who's busy hunting down the bloodsucker that killed his sister. The Baron's gone to a castle inhabited by a family of vampires known as the Karnsteins.
For this ruined castle had once been the home of the Karnstein family.
Yeah, Steen, Stein, whatever. And no, this vampire isn't dressed as a Charlie Brown ghost for Halloween. Instead, it has to do with a weird vampire rule.
I also knew that without the shroud in which it was interred to cloak its festering body, there could be no night of rest.
Okay, can't say I'm familiar with that rule, but considering according to some legends, vampires can be defeated by running water, it's not the dumbest one I've heard. So far, we've got most of the trappings of a classic Hammer vampire movie. The dark, cobwebbed castles, graveyards filled with dry ice, the gothic atmosphere, the sleepy village full of potential victims. Although because this was made in 1970, some of the villagers are starting to look like roadies for humble pie. Also, the gore may seem pretty tame so far, but they're just getting started, give them a chance. Anyway, the Baron lures the vampire by taking its shroud, even though it still seems to be wearing its shroud. This part's a little confusing. In any case, it doesn't keep it very long.
I can't believe it. It's a lady.
Alright, let's get to some vampire killing. And if you're wondering what the rules for that are...
A vampire can be destroyed only by a stake through the heart or decapitation.
Yep, and guess which one he picks?
Decapitation!
So yeah, this beginning shows that Hammer ain't fucking around. The opening credits are over a still of a severed vampire's head. One weird thing I gotta mention though, actress Dawn Adams is credited as a guest star as if this were an episode of a TV show. Why do they do that for movies? If it's a one-off thing, isn't every actor equally a guest here? I'm not sure when exactly this takes place, but apparently it was at a time when every country in Europe had the word duchy in it. So after a vampire decapitation, see if you can guess where the movie goes from here. That's right, an old-timey European hoedown. And you can't have a Hammer flick without Peter Cushing. Well, you can, but it won't be as good. Peter plays General von Spielsdorf, although he's dressed more like Sergeant Pepper. And wait, I recognize this guy too. It's Jerry Cornelius from the final program.
Fuck off, you Greek maniac! Miss Brunner! I'm losing! Geronimo! Oh, shit!
Wow, that's going way back in my channel's history. One of the great things about filming these types of movies in Europe is that there's so many old buildings that add production value, although this modern chain link fence is a little out of place. The general's throwing a ball in honor of his niece Laura's birthday when he's visited by a countess named, Countess, along with her daughter.
May I present my daughter, Marcy?
Wow, your daughter? I thought she was your sister. I'm not saying that to be nice. You really do look like you're close to the same age. Marcilla's played by Polish actress Ingrid Pitt, who's one of the all-time legendary horror babes. If you needed somebody to play a hot vampire in the 70s, she was a good pick. One thing's for sure, she really makes all the men at the ball's sideburns stand on end.
They've just moved into a place about 5 kilometers away. You know, where the old Baroness used to live.
Well, we must love our neighbors, Kurt.
Yeah, if you play your cards right, you might even see her ankles before the night is over. Oh, don't worry, you'll see a lot more of her than that. Well, not in this video, I'm gonna have to censor it for YouTube, but you get the idea. However, Marcilla doesn't seem too interested in the guys here.
Every other young man in the room is staring at that girl over there, except you.
Oh, that girl over there? Yeah, she is pretty hot.
She keeps staring at you.
Nonsense. She's looking at you.
Lesbian vampires. By the way, I have a feeling this mysterious guy dressed like Thanksgiving Dracula might also be a vampire. Whoa, easy, Countess. The party ain't getting that crazy. This guy gives the Countess some instructions, causing her to leave, and she asks the general to look after Marcilla.
My dear Countess, I assure you it'll be my pleasure to look after your daughter.
Okay, by the looks of it, Marcilla's in her 30s. I don't really think she needs a babysitter, but sure, I guess she can stay for a while. She can be a playmate for Laura. Or just a playmate.
Dear Laura, I do feel we'll be such good friends.
Yes, they will. Things start to really get weird when Laura has a nightmare that looks like a German expressionist movie. And what the hell? Is she getting assaulted by a shag carpet?
It was a cat! A huge cat!
Well, that's weird. Usually vampires are known for turning into bats or wolves, not... Oh, the lesbian vampire turns into a big hairy pussy. I got it. Look, Laura, sorry you had a nightmare, but you can't sleep in our room, okay? You're 25.
It troubles me, Doctor. The child seems to get weaker and weaker.
Again, she's not a child. And I wouldn't trust this doctor to help her either.
Need some iron, that's all. Green stuffs, red meat. A drop of port, perhaps, at night.
Yeah, just feed her some steaks and have her drink herself to sleep. That ought to work. Alright, let me know how she does. And if she gets worse, I'll prescribe some morphine and leeches. Despite the doctor's advice, Marcilla continues to work her spell on Laura. And besides, I think she knows a way to make her feel better.
Please, no, go away.
Where's Marcilla? Damn, good thing her boyfriend wasn't around to hear that. She never made that noise with him.
Doctor, you must come at once.
Look, if it's about Laura, just give her a burger and some whiskey. I'm sure she'll be fine. I don't know if the general suspects Marcilla of being a vampire, but I've got some suspicions of my own.
Where the devil is she?
I don't know, sir. Her room is empty.
I am here.
Apparently she's also Batman.
It is daylight now. She is dead.
Wow, I can see you're really torn up about it. The doctor arrives. Unfortunately, it's too late for Laura to chug the bottle of wine he brought with. He does make an important discovery, though. Instead of going for the throat, apparently the vampire that bit her was a tit man. Or woman. Speaking of which...
Marcilla.
Okay, seriously, is she Batman? While this movie does generally have a great gothic horror look to it, watching it in HD, it is pretty obvious that some of the backgrounds are painted. And holy crap, Marcilla was really Bruce Willis from The Sixth Sense the whole time. One thing's for sure, this girl picked a bad shortcut to Grandma's house. And I think Jason's after her now. Oh, no, wait. It's actually Pamela Voorhees back in her experimenting in college days. I still don't know who the guy in the cape is, but apparently he really likes to watch. Fun fact, originally Hammer offered the role of the Man in Black to Christopher Lee, who turned it down, probably because he'd already done the whole vampire with barely any line shtick already. Alright, there's not many surprises here. We know Marcilla's a vampire who worms her way into rich people's homes so she can feed on their nubile young daughters, but there is a bit of a twist on her and this other lady's plan here.
My niece.
Your niece.
Carmilla.
Hey, that's the name of the book the movie's based on. So basically the whole scheme plays out again. The Countess says she has to go and asks this new guy Morton to take care of her niece while she's away. You know, these two are really lucky there's so many people around here willing to babysit an adult woman they've never met before. Then again, there are benefits to having Carmilla around. She can help teach Morton's daughter German.
Die Augen... I can't say it.
Die Augenbraue.
Oh.
The eyebrow.
Ah, danke. Sie sind ein Linguist. Carmilla really lucked out. Not only does she have Morton's daughter Emma to feed on, but she's also got Emma's governess, Mademoiselle Peridot. And if anyone thinks I'm being too sleazy here, don't worry, the movie's got that part covered.
Emma, hand me that towel over there, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Another fun fact, this was Hammer's most successful release that year. And now you know why. Even though this was Hammer's attempt to show they could do R-rated horror, I'll tell you what's really scary.
No, I don't
Yes,
want
you must.
Take the apple dress. I want you. I want you to. No.
Yes.
No!
That's right, a tickle fight. Oops, my mistake. Did I say tickle? By the way, I love how after this scene the dad has a look on his face like, wait, did those two just... Nah, I'm being crazy.
You look quite lovely.
You've got that post-Lady Nut glow about you. While this is going on, the mysterious guy in the cape is back, probably so he can keep watching now that Carmilla is back in artsy seduction mode again. Although I'm a little surprised this movie wasn't filmed in 3D with all the heaving bosoms on display.
Great cat. It was there. It was grey and big as a wolf. It had enormous eyes.
Sure, eyes. You know, it must have been hard being a rich European aristocrat back then. The elaborate meals, the day drinking, the sitting around not really doing anything. It had to be exhausting. Morton has to leave on a business trip. Now you girls don't get up to too much trouble while he's away.
Mr. Morton, I will take care of Emma, as though she were my own sister.
Look, we don't need any incest stuff. We can save that for a later Hammer movie. People expecting a full-on horror fest might be a little disappointed with the middle section of the movie, since instead of vampire action, it concentrates more on Carmilla's budding seduction/romance with Emma.
You're so sensitive.
Only about some things, and about you.
Silly. Why about me?
Because I love you, and I don't want anyone taking you away from me.
Should I make a still a better love story than Twilight joke here? It's been done. There are still flashes of the classic Hammer atmosphere, though, with fog-shrouded graveyards and peasant victims getting bit, although a lot of the movie seems to take place during the daytime. Speaking of which, I just realized that for a vampire, Carmilla doesn't seem too bothered by sunlight.
Carmilla, why do you always sit in the shade?
The sun is too bright for me. It hurts my eyes.
Okay, I guess in this universe, sunlight doesn't kill vampires, it just kinda mildly annoys them. They do apparently have a weakness to funeral chants, though.
Stop it! Stop it!
Look, Carmilla, it's the 1700s, okay? Sorry they're not playing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life at funerals.
I hate funerals. Hate them!
I thought it rather sad, and yet beautiful.
You must die. Everybody must die.
No. The line is...
Too bad you will die.
Alright, as much as I poke fun, Ingrid Pitt is one of the main things that makes this movie work. I've heard a few people criticize her performance as stiff, but with her husky voice, Eastern European accent, and piercing stare, she does have an otherworldly presence that makes her effective as a sexy vampire. And yes, she does also look good naked, so there's that. The main thing going against her is that according to the story, Carmilla is supposed to appear to be in her early 20s, and yeah, it's not as bad as Caroline Munro playing a high schooler in Slaughter High, but it's pretty close. If anything, Carmilla seems more like a cougar trying to seduce Emma. And I'm not just saying that because she turns into a giant cat. And if anyone thought I was reaching with the whole cat vagina comparison...
The cat comes. and it lies across me, warm and heavy, and I feel its fur in my mouth.
That is 100% what they were going for. I'm sorry I got my fur in your mouth. If only there was some way for me to make you feel better. Hey, that'll work. Once again, though, Carmilla goes a little hard with her love bites.
It was my fault. A brooch I gave her. I told her to be careful.
Yeah, and that hickey on her neck's from a curling iron. And hang on a sec, I think Carmilla might be setting her sights on a new victim. Well, even with the dim lighting during this part, I'm still gonna have to black box it just to be safe. Sorry, everybody. Even though Madame Peridot is now protective of Carmilla, the rest of the staff is starting to get suspicious of Emma's deteriorating condition, especially the butler Renton and his extremely arched eyebrows. Yeah, well, just get drunk and play grab-ass with the local tavern wench. I'm sure the problem will fix itself.
Miss Emma's very ill. I'm not the doctor. Why won't that blasted governess let me send for him? It's more like a bloody vampire, that one.
Oh wow, just mentioning a vampire leads to the old world equivalent of a record scratch.
There's been 3 deaths round here lately. Just a scream in the night and then found there, pale as death.
I mean, you're all British and alcoholics. You were probably going to be found like that anyway. And sending for the doctor's not going to do any good. He's just going to recommend some brandy and pork chops. Thankfully, Renton has some remedies of his own.
Garlic flowers, they have an antiseptic scent.
Great, she can be sick and have bad breath. You know, considering most modern vampire movies rarely use the garlic weakness unless it's a comedy, it's kind of weird to see it played straight here. And the doctor knows the real cure for Emma's condition is a megadose of vitamin Jesus. Alright, time for Carmilla to take care of that meddling doctor the only way she knows how, by being sexy and beguiling in a nightgown. Oh no! No! So is the guy in the horse supposed to be watching this, or is he somewhere else? Why is he even in this movie? Meanwhile, Morton's back and doesn't really know much about vampires, so let's have Mutton Chops McGillicuddy here explain things to him.
There was a young nobleman whose sister was murdered by them. He chopped off the head of the vampire and he staked the rest in their graves.
Yeah, we all saw the beginning. There's no need to show it again.
If you don't believe me, sir, ask General Spielsdorf.
General Spielsdorf?
Oh yeah, that's right. What happened to Peter Cushing? We're over an hour in and we haven't seen him since the beginning. You know, even though Peter Cushing is listed 4th in the credits, they could have listed him as a guest star. Hey, there he is. And he's with Baron Hartog, who apparently stopped dyeing his hair.
Then you believe that it is true about this family of vampires?
I know that it is true.
Okay, here's a complaint I have about the structure of this movie. The opening scene with Baron Hartog killing the Karnsteins to avenge his sister, combined with the other characters seeking out his help in the 3rd act, kind of makes this feel like a sequel, even though it's not. I actually checked to see if there was a Baron Hartog movie before this, but nope, there isn't. It just really feels like there is. Anyway, Hartog explains that he killed all members of the Karnstein family except one, since he wasn't able to find their coffin, and now they're off to Karnstein Castle to finish the job. Speaking of which, what's Carmilla up to? Never mind, I think I know where she is. And what are you doing? The guy in the cape is supposed to watch, not you. Again, getting back to the structural oddities of this movie, when our heroes arrive at Karnstein Castle, Hartog explains what happened at the beginning again, which seems like an excuse for the filmmakers to try to kill time by repeating footage we've already seen.
It was a woman, a very beautiful woman.
I don't know why they're so surprised by this. I've known vampires can be hot for years. They finally learn the truth when they see a painting that, I guess is supposed to be Carmilla?
Mircalla.
Marcella.
Yeah, whatever. At least it ain't Alucard. Meanwhile, back at Morton's place, Carmilla takes control of things by trying out a new trick, seducing a man. Spoiler alert, it totally works. So now that Renton's under Carmilla's control, he requests the removal of the garlic and crosses from Emma's room. Either that or he's just a total simp. Not that I really blame him. Fun fact, the actor playing Renton requested multiple takes of this scene to get it right. I'm guessing, I don't actually know. Carmilla ends up biting and killing him before they can go any further, so I guess he really was just a simp. Well, we already established that sunlight doesn't kill vampires here. Instead, they only go back to their coffins after they feed. And since Carmilla already bumped off Renton, instead of killing Emma, she decides to take her with so they can be together.
Come. I'm taking you with me.
That's right, this titillating vampire flick actually has a genuine same-sex love story in it, which is not something you saw too often in 1970. Although I think Madame Peridot might be a little jealous.
Take me with you!
You knew what this was. But she could use a little snack for the road, so how about a kiss goodbye? And oh yeah, Jerry Cornelius, I forgot he was in this movie. He hasn't really done a whole lot so far.
Mircalla!
I've come to stop you. Oh dear, that didn't work. I'm not very good at this. Oh well, at least it gives me an excuse to play this clip again.
Miss Bronner! I'm losing!
Not to worry though, according to the weird vampire rules here, anything even remotely cross-shaped is enough to ward her off. You know, I always wondered, if all you need is something vaguely cross-shaped, could you technically ward off a vampire just by doing this with your fingers? Did I kill her? Am I the hero? You know what? If anyone asks, I totally saved you and I'm the hero, okay? Nah, Carmilla's not dead. She just teleported back to her coffin, which I guess is another power she has.
I will do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a Hammer vampire movie. You gotta have Peter Cushing kill the vampire, even if it's not played by Christopher Lee. And so, General Spielsdorf brings an end to Carmilla's sexy reign of terror by driving a stake through her, stomach? Liver? I think you might have missed her heart there, General.
Decapitation!
Okay, now she's probably dead.
It's over.
Well, not quite. We still have no idea who the hell this guy is. And for that matter, who was the countess that was helping Carmilla with her schemes? Was she another vampire? Somebody under Carmilla's control? Well, there's 2 more movies in this series, so maybe we'll find out who they are in those. Oh, okay, never mind. Oh, what do you know? I guess modern superhero movies weren't the first to set up plot threads that don't go anywhere. Despite being heavily cut for its American release, The Vampire Lovers still secured an R rating, which combined with its sensationalistic marketing helped make it a success at the box office, giving Hammer a new lease on life, at least for a few years anyway. So, is this up there with Hammer's classics of the horror genre? Not quite. Despite Hammer amping up the sex and decapitations, the movie still isn't as grungy or visceral as something like Night of the Living Dead, and modern audiences might find it a little slow, especially in the middle. The structure is a little strange too. If you include the opening flashback with Baron Hartog and Carmilla seducing her first victim, it's almost like the movie has 2 prologues. As a result, there isn't much mystery to the story, and the main plot of Carmilla trying to seduce and then falling in love with Emma doesn't get as much development as it should. Still, Ingrid Pitt is easily one of the sexiest bloodsuckers ever, and it's always great to see Peter Cushing, even if he's not in the movie that much. Some might dismiss this as only including the lesbian sexual element for the purposes of titillation, which, yeah, okay, sure. But that was still a pretty provocative move in 1970. Also, even though Carmilla's the villain, the love story between her and Emma is treated surprisingly sympathetically for the time, and there's actually a hint of tragedy when she's killed at the end. This movie kinda has the feel of old school horror meeting the new school at the dawn of the 70s. It's almost like Hammer wanted to keep some of the classiness of their old period vampire flicks, while also including more blood and boobs to keep up with the times. It doesn't entirely succeed, but it's still an interesting and somewhat important part of both Hammer's and British horror movie history. So with that said, next episode I'm going to talk about a cheap ripoff that's not important at all. Well, that's all for now. Until next time.
must die. Everybody must die.